Hey everyone, Chime here. I've decided to do something a little different today. This is a 20-year review for the Pokemon series, games, everything involved. I want to talk about everything that's happened over the past 20 years, whether it's in America, Japan, and all of that, and give my thoughts on each thing. So without further ado, let's talk. You'll see first of all if you are right about here. What we actually have is the trainer card here that I set up. So feel free to add me. Put your friend code into the comments as well, and I'll add you back. Always nice to have more friends to trade and battle with. But otherwise, what I want to talk about, I want to talk about the games. I want to talk about the different generations. Give my thoughts on each one. I want to talk about the trading card game itself, Pokemon cards as they're always known. The anime, talk about that a little bit in the manga. Well, let's start Generation 1. It was back when Red and Green came out, February 27th, 1996. 2 years, over 2 years before we even got them across here. In Japan, they released, it became a big phenomenon, and then they decided to release what became Red and Blue to us in November 1st, 1998. Or, I'm sorry, yeah, it was September 28th, 1998, over in North America here. But the red, blue, yellow, green, all those are the classics. What's really nice, I do like what they've done recently to really touch on the 20-year aspect is when they released it onto the 3DS, the 2DS here. Mm-hmm. Boom. What I've actually been playing through Pokemon Red again. The games actually hold up very well for the age. I was really honestly surprised playing through Red, Blue, and Yellow here that it's very nostalgic because it is exactly how I remember it. Faults and all, every little detail, the things they've fixed over the years, you start to forget that they started to add things and change things in even the second generation. But they really hold up very well. I'm probably one of the only ones out there that my main starter in Red Blue were actually Bulbasaur. A lot of people always talk down about it, but in all reality, he's the only one that beats both the first and the second gem. And by the time you make it to the third gem, you've gotten other things like rock Pokemon and all that, which is always baffled me when people pick Charmander because Charmander's not good against either of the first gems. And come at me, I want to hear your thoughts on this, on why you chose who you chose. Definitely put it in the comments. I would love to see what people have to say. I'm doing this in my own opinion. This is a vlog. This is an opinion piece. So it's just my opinions. Some people chose Squirtle, which was okay against the first gem, but water types are bad against the second gem and bad against the third gem. Whereas Bulbasaur isn't even really a bad choice for, at least till the third gem. Truly, that's my thoughts. The second generation, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, I actually really like those. I'm a big fan of when they finally added some more color to it and added the breeding system. The fact that you can get shinies and Pokerus. That was a big one back then. I remember being a kid playing the games and found out about Pokerus. And it became a big deal to try to get yourself infected. It was the virus that basically helped with leveling and helping bring your stats up as you leveled. And then if you put it into your box, you would actually start to infect other Pokemon in your box, which was very cool. Third generation was actually always awesome. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Um, those ones added things like the hidden bases and added a lot more depth to the games. I've been recently playing the remakes, Alpha Sapphire and Ruby, and Omega Ruby, but the remakes really they capture the old school feel to it, and they add a lot more to it. I'll talk about the remakes here in a few, but Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were always fun, especially if you chose one game, you would get a different team that you're facing, and you had to face it that way. And that was not heard of in any of the prior generations, where the only differences were the Pokemon you got, maybe the legendary that you got out of the second generation, things like that. Fourth generation is actually the one I know the least about. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. I did skip a generation, full disclosure there. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. I own Pearl, and I never actually finished it. From what I can tell, they added a lot more to the story and added those kind of things and the features involved there. I don't have much to say on the fourth generation because I'm not as versed in it. But fifth generation I did pick back up for Black, White, Black 2, and White 2. I actually played through Black 1 and Black 2 completely, and then my wife actually had the White set. And I really like the extra little assets that you had with the black and the white city and forest and all of that. I also like that they kind of pulled it away from its old school feel. It gave it a renewed feeling to it. What I did also like was during that generation, they started to bring in the fact that Diamond and Pearl, you had the remakes of Red and Green, and then in this generation, you actually had remakes of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as they called it, which was the second generation remakes. They actually did really well with the remakes in each case, and again, I'll talk about those all here in a minute. Sixth generation, I actually really like X and Y. They had a lot more in-depth in story. They have really evolved a lot of the things that you can do, especially with things like Pokemon Box, which is the fact that, Pokemon Bank. Pokemon Box is different, and almost the same thing. Pokemon Bank, which I actually have on my 3DS here. I keep all of my extra everything in there, allow to travel between different games. The Pokemon Bank is actually very well done, and I'll be really excited to see how they utilize it in future releases, especially on the 3DS where everything is connected nowadays, especially if they start adding things to Android and iOS and or Windows. I'm going to talk about the remakes before I move on to the newest generation that's coming out this year. But the remakes of Fire Red, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Omega Sapphire, and Alpha Sapphire, Omega Ruby. They were all very well done, and something that they touch on in the newest games is that there's different dimensions. And the different dimensions, it's very obvious that they're alluding to the fact that the remakes all take place in a separate dimension to the old games. Generation 1, 2, 3, and possibly even 4. It wasn't until Black and White that they started to make it seem like it was a separate dimension altogether, which was a very interesting aspect because it really, Black and White didn't seem like they belonged in the same world as even Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. One thing I do like though is that they take place with the newer generation stuff, which the newer generation things that they have a more refreshed feeling to them without losing the charm of the old games. Talk about a couple little things here. Side games such as Stadium, Coliseum, and Pokemon Box. Those are some of the old school ones. Stadium was on the N64. Coliseum would have been on the GameCube, I believe. And then Gale of Darkness XD was also on the GameCube. Whereas Pokemon Box, Ruby and Sapphire, was basically the precursor to the Pokemon Bank that it currently is. That's why I accidentally called it that earlier. One thing I also like, something that was old school back in the day on Gold and Silver, they added what was called the Pokemon Pikachu. It was a little pedometer. I had one actually. It's probably somewhere in a box somewhere, and I'm pretty sure I still have mine. And Pokemon Pikachu and the Pikachu 2 was the updated version. The Pokewalker, on the other hand, came out with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and that allowed you to put any Pokemon that wasn't, it didn't have to be Pikachu. I actually have a couple of those somewhere as well. What was nice about those, though, was they were supposedly the most accurate pedometer to date at that point. There was nothing more accurate than those. And that was actually very cool to me, especially since I actually clipped mine to my belt every day at work. Then they had event things like there was something called Yellow Road that was actually the majority of what I kept on it. So you would get Pikachus, and there was a chance that you could get a flying Pikachu and a surfing Pikachu, if I recall. I have just a crap ton of Pikachus on my Pokemon Bank because I transferred all of those over very recently, actually. Well, let's talk about the trading card game games, like the video games. There was the Game Boy game, there was, if I recall, a Game Boy Advance game, and then there's the current stuff, which is the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, which the Trading Card Game Online was all it is you get your packs, you get your boosters, you get your decks, you set up a deck. It's very intricate and realistic in the fact that all you're really doing is you're battling. You're doing your tournaments, you're doing your games like that, and you get your little avatar, which is cute, but it's inconsequential because it's really just a version of the trading card game itself. There's other games, for instance, the pinball game, and then there was a pinball game that came out after the fact, and it was just literally a Game Boy version of a pinball game with Pokemon in it. Mystery Dungeon series, I haven't had a lot of time playing those, but the Mystery Dungeon seems great for kids. Everything about it, it's great. I mean, it's just not my cup of tea, but you play as a kid that turns into a Pokemon in most of these games, and then you have to go on the adventure as a Pokemon. It's neat. Couple from my childhood, Hey You Pikachu and Pokemon Snap, both for the N64. Hey You Pikachu was always funny because there was a lot of little Easter eggs. It was starting to introduce a couple of Pokemon from Gold and Silver at that point. That's how old this is. The Hey You Pikachu, you would talk into it on the N64. There's a little microphone you would get, and you would talk to Pikachu and tell it what to do. Hey, go over there. Hey, Pikachu. Look, go do this, go to the TV, go to the tree over there, and you would talk to him and you would guide him. It was horribly inaccurate. It was in comparison to the things that you can do nowadays, it was atrocious. It really was. But I'm sure if we were to play it nowadays, it probably wouldn't hold up the test of time. But back in the day, it was awesome. It was great. Pokemon Snap, on the other hand, actually holds up really well, even in the test of time, because all it is you play as a character taking pictures. You're just meant to be on an on-rails camera shooter, essentially. And you had to get the best possible pictures you could of different characters. Sometimes you could trick them into coming out and doing something special, give you special points, like getting Pikachu to run over with apples, run over to a surfboard, or getting getting Articuno to come out, or Moltres, or whatever, Zapdos. It was a lot of cool little Easter eggs, especially if you got enough points and you opened up the last level, which was just Mew. Your job was to make Mew come out of his bubbles so you could get a picture of the elusive Mew. And that would basically win the game on its own because you've already done everything else to get the points. That one's probably one of my old favorites, personally. Let's talk about the future of games. We've got Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is the 7th generation. Sun and Moon, we don't know much about. There's a little bit of concept art out there. There's vehicles involved, and there's Pokemon on the back of the vehicles, which that's really all we know. It looks like it might be a tropical of some sort area. A lot of people are theorizing that it could be Hawaii or something like that. It also there's some theories out there about it allowing the trainers to fuse with their Pokemon, basically Dragon Ball Z style, and then you get these weird kind of furry versions of the characters that you would battle instead of just the Pokemon. I don't know if that's going to be true, but I mean, I guess Digimon did something similar at one point, so who knows? It's not out of the question. But there's not much known otherwise. There's a little concept art for a bird, and that's about it. I guess we'll just have to wait to know. Probably in the next few months, knowing them. It's March now. We expect that they'll start talking about it probably summertime, I'm sure. Pokemon Go is a big one. It's going to be a thing where you have the wristband with a little Pokeball that's on it. Little Pokeball, just like that. And what'll happen is the Pokemon Go will allow you to go mobile, so you can take your phone and you can travel anywhere you want, and there's Pokemon all over the place, just like the game Ingress. And what it is, it's the same people making it. So it might say, hey, there's a Pokemon nearby on the map, and what'll happen is on the map, you'll just follow it along, and suddenly out of nowhere, Eevee, or Mewtwo even. That was part of the big trailer, and a lot of people are excited for this. If they do it right, it'll be one of those kind of things that people. It's their way to trick you into being more active, the same way that the Pokewalkers and the Pikachu and all that were, and the different things like that. But it'll be a lot more fun, especially since there's going to be PvP, player versus player, gym battles, and just battles in general. I've talked about this with a couple of friends of mine, and we're just excited to be able to do battles, just standing there at work if we wanted to. Recent one just came out this week was Pokken Tournament. What Pokken Tournament is it was made by the guys that made the Tekken series, and it's just basically Tekken with Pokemon. It's getting some pretty good reviews. It's just a fighting game, but what's nice about it is it adds the fact that it's real time fighting as opposed to turn based. Um, Touch on a couple of little things here with the trading card game. Nothing really's changed on the trading card game since I was a kid. First card I ever got was a Caterpie. It was the very first Pokemon card I ever owned was a Caterpie, and it would have been from one of the original sets and all that. And from there, it just turned into me owning basically the entirety of the first 3 or 4 sets, and then from there, I've just been playing off and on ever since. I even have some recent stuff. I did a review recently on the mythical Mew and Celebi sets. In fact, I've got these two here. Proof that I got the mythical sets. And what, if you're still watching at this point, what was your first card? Do you remember? When did you start getting into Pokemon? Did you get into the trading card game first or the video games? Definitely put it in the comments. I actually love chatting with the fans about different things, especially Pokemon like this. The anime is actually one of the last things I want to talk about. The anime is probably one of the only things that hasn't held up really over time. It's I tried watching the original show, the Kanto set where it introduces Ash and Misty and Brock and Pikachu and Team Rocket. The main series is pretty horrible. Looking back, it didn't really get good until about halfway into the first season, where it's a little bit better. But the first several episodes is very, very 90s, and it's almost hard to watch because of it. Especially with the I believe it was 4Kids that did the dubbing, and it was pretty horrible. The movies, on the other hand, things like Mewtwo Strikes Back, and even like I'd probably say even the first several movies, I tried watching those again, and they actually are really good. Especially the first one, the Mew and Mewtwo movie was just great. I recently rewatched the Celebi movie, which I believe was the third movie, and it was even very good. And no, I'm sorry, it wasn't the third; it was the fourth movie, Pokemon Forever. The third movie with Entei was great, Entei and the Unknown. Then you've got the Lugia movie with the mystical birds. They're all great. Those hold up pretty well. What I do like, though, is something they did more recently, a couple of years back now, called Pokemon Origins. And what the Origins was, it was a little mini-series that didn't take place in Ash's universe. It was actually meant to be a recreation of the games themselves. Down to the detail with music and everything. They were just spot on. They did so well on it. Pokemon Origins, it was like 4 episodes, and it took place across the entirety of the first Red and Blue games. And then they added something from the more recent games, X and Y, the Mega Evolution, and it, I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but if you have not seen it, it actually is very, very well done. It's very obviously meant to be a anime version of the game, whereas every time you go into the episode, it acts like the new game startup, and or the new game or continue. You know, how many has he caught by that point? How many badges? Just like it always is said on the front panel there, which is very good. Like I said, the music was just, they were great. So, besides all of that, they've done other things in Pokemon. They've done the manga. They've done several other games, especially side games like Pokemon Art Academy recently, and things like Pokemon Shuffle and Troze and all of those. Without going into all of the side things they've done, I mean, they're hit or miss on some of them. Sometimes they're just meant for kids. Sometimes they're kind of just, you could tell that they're rushed, but they try to keep themselves out there. They try to keep Pokemon relevant. As a 20-year full respect here, my final word on this, they've done well. They've kept Pokemon relevant over the past 20 years. It never faltered. There wasn't a time that I can think of that was, hey, what's Pokemon? No, it's been a constant flow since in Japan 96, and for us 98. I really like that they've kept up with it. It's no different than Nintendo doing their Mario series and things like that. There's always been Mario games. There's always, since in the same era with like Smash Brothers, which has featured several Pokemon. And Smash has every generation gotten a game nowadays. We're on like the 4th generation of Smash games, about to go into our 5th generation if I recall. And Pikachu and Jigglypuff, having Charizard and Mewtwo, Lucario, and then all the Pokeball Pokemon that in the Stadium Pokemon that would show up as side help and all that. Smash actually is probably my most effective example in this case of keeping things relevant, because it's just like Zelda, just like Mario. Nintendo knows how to stick to their guns. They know how to keep a constant flow. We've always had Zelda games. We've always had Smash games, and we've always had Mario games. We've always had Pokemon games. And good or bad, it's not going away anytime soon. I would highly doubt that they would kill off the franchise anytime soon. They've just always kept up with it. They've always made money off of it, because in Japan they did an event recently, and Pokemon, the crowd was wild. It was crazy. I saw the pictures. So like I said, comment below. I'm going to be looking into the comments on this one a lot, so please let me know. This video went a little bit longer than I thought, but I figured I'd be about a half hour. Comment your favorite Pokemon. Who was your first starter? What was your first game? I want to hear it all. I want it. What was your first Pokemon card? Who's my favorite Pokemon of all time is Gengar, and you can't see it here. Hold on. I'm going to boom. So Gengar here. Gengar is definitely the best. He, I would, if you were a trainer in the world, what would be your set of Pokemon? If it were down to a gym, if you were a gym, what would be your Pokemon type? Comment below. Tell me everything that you want. I love seeing these things. I love responding. I love it all. Definitely give me a holler on that. There we go. So, other than that, I'm going to call it a night. We're pushing 30 minutes right now. As always, right on time, folks. Gotta catch 'em all. And have a great night on this. And if you're watching this live, I'll be gaming here in a minute. Other than that, have a great one, guys. Right on chime, signing out on this.